Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of season 3 of Rising Woman. Now, we're going to be taking a look at how we can take your business ahead this morning. And in particular, we're going to be looking at this digital era, the modalities around it, the right customer engagement. How is it working for you as a customer? How easy is it for you to access that particular business and that product? And you as the person who's delivering the service, how easy is it for you to get in touch with that customer and deliver on time and just the way they want this thing given? Well, that's the conversation, and I'm not going to be the one having it alone. I am Rita Kanya and I'll be your moderator. We have taken a look at branding. Now today we take a look at those modalities when it comes to communication. You can be a part of the conversation. You can go to our social media platforms and also share your thoughts there. But here in studio with me, I am joined by 3 ladies, and I'll start off from my extreme left where I have Rosemary Mutiabule, who is the Director of Business Advisory Services at Enterprise Uganda. Good morning, Rosemary.
Good
and
morning,
welcome. Next to her, we have Lydia Namono Wesonga, who is the Assistant Editor Business at the Daily Monitor. Welcome, Lydia.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
And next to me, right next to me, is Faith Ikudu, who is the Deputy Director Communications and Public Relations at the Uganda Investment Authority. Good morning. Welcome. Now, online, we also do have one person who's joining us, and you might have seen her, you might have heard of her. And when it comes to communication, her name is not too far from our lips, though she's not here with us in Uganda. That is Shanice Jade, who is the Group CEO of Blue Flamingo. She's live from South Africa. Good morning, Shanice.
Good morning. It's really great to join you from Joburg. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Now, getting right into the conversation, we'll start off with you, Shanice. From where you stand, where do you see our communication negotiation skills for women when it comes to service delivery?
Well, this is an interesting area for me because having run a business for 11 years, you quickly become clear on this idea of negotiation and asking for what you want and how important that is and how it factors into where you see yourself and where you get. So when it comes to the question you asked, which is how important is it when it comes to service delivery? Well, it's absolutely critical. And I think that everything that we do, everything that we touch starts with the stories that we tell. The stories that we tell ourselves about our abilities, how far we can push ourselves, but also just believe what we believe. So I think it's critical and it's imperative to really understand the nuances of communication and also how you communicate and how you come across. So I'm a big advocate for understanding the role that communication plays in really bringing forth an idea, in really making sure that we're delivering, value for our customers, and in doing so, value for all our shareholders, whether they be our staff, our communities, the society in general. So I think for me, the key things are, and this is the essence for me, communication is in 3 very simple steps. It's first in understanding the role that you play as an individual, as a company, as an organization. So it's very important to have clarity on how you provide value. And the next step is, again, clarity. I'll always go back to this. Clarity in how you are delivering for the same. And then understanding and being able to, the third step is to get feedback, because that feedback helps to refine your process and helps to refine how you create value. So communication as women, I think, is absolutely key in how we deliver. We're naturally born communicators, but I do believe there are some societal and cultural issues we have to get through, be comfortable in claiming our space.
Okay. Well, Shanice, from what you've mentioned, just bringing to the conversation, Lydia, she mentions 3 particular areas. And how are we doing from where you see and where you sit as an editor? How does it look like in the 3 areas that she's mentioned?
Well, I could say we still have challenges. There's still more work to be done. Of course, as somebody at the center of telling stories, as one key thing she's talked about, many women are doing so many interesting things. They are not telling their story. That's the sad reality on ground. But we just have to step up. Nobody's going to do it for us. We have to be confident. We have to face these challenges that are around us, the domestic challenges. We have to rise above all them in order to be at the top, in order to tell our story, so that people then will see what we are offering, what we have to offer. That's what our male counterparts do better than us. When they get to the table, they'll lay out all their achievements, but the ladies, they'll sort of, hold back, which is wrong. It's time for us to take up that space. It's time for us to claim that space and know that, yes, we can do it. We are good communicators. Research shows that we use more words when we are speaking compared to men. So why not? Why aren't we taking up these spaces? Fellow women, let's take up these spaces. Don't be afraid. Step up. Step out.
Well, Rosemary seems to be noting down something, and I'll ask you to just step in and say something in addition to what Lydia has mentioned, and then you, Faith, as well.
Yes, in addition to what Lydia and Sionis have mentioned, I think that I want to agree that women are natural communicators. We are born communicators, and I think that's a strength that women bring into business. In terms of entrepreneurship, we know that women are very strong in communication, and so it's easy to sell. But the challenge is, in spite of that strength that we possess as women, how come we still find our businesses struggle? And so I think it's the challenge now is the how and the when. And so, and of course, in communication, technology comes in. We're in a digital era. And so for most of the women, as you may know, the bigger segment of women who are in business are actually not very tech savvy. And so when it comes to communicating to a customer that keeps evolving and is quite tech savvy, that's where the challenge comes. And I think that women need a lot of support. They need to be supported to understand, how do I communicate to this woman or to this customer, the different customers. We know that essentially there are 4 segments now. We're talking about 4 generations of customers, right? And so women are within those segments, but also men. And so how do you deal with the baby boomers? How do you communicate? That's probably the easiest for us women, right? But then how then do you deal with the woman who is in Generation X or Generation Y especially, and now Generation Z? And so I think that's where the challenge is for women, and the need for us to be able to support each other, to be able to package and communicate effectively. Yeah.
Okay. And you, Faith?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on what was said earlier. I think what we're saying also comes down to the story we're telling ourselves, So if I'm confident about what I'm selling, I'm confident about how I'm saying it. I believe in my product. I believe that I'm going to change the world. I believe that, this is good. It will come through in how we communicate. And I like what you said about, the men tend to tell us what they're doing, and we tend to shy away, like we want to hold it in. And yet the thing is, if we don't say it, nobody will know what we're doing. And yet it's interesting, when you sit down with women and you find out what they're doing, it's amazing. And the more we share the stories of our successes, the more we encourage each other to do more.
Well, when you mentioned telling a story, Shanice had earlier highlighted that she's been at this communication thing for 11 years. And Rosemary had also mentioned that there is a change on generations and how the communication should be perhaps carried out. So Shanice, bring you into the conversation again. Tell us a story of how it has changed for you over the years. What has changed in terms of the modalities that Blue Flamingo has taken on when it comes to communicating with the clients? What have you had to drop? Why did you drop it? What did you try and it just didn't work out? Or what have you kept with time?
My laundry list of things that have not worked out is so long, I don't think you have enough time. But to address what has changed over the years, it's been a phenomenal journey. And I think that I saw a quote once that really inspired me that said that entrepreneurship, right, is a personal growth engine masquerading as a business. And I truly believe that, because when you're a true entrepreneur, the business changes you. And the truth of the matter is that the business can never be bigger, it can never be more aggressive, more ambitious than its leader. And what I have learned over the years, that even as I'm providing value to my customers, to my clients, to my team, I see my shareholders as internal and external. I see a commitment to the people who do the work as much as I see a commitment to the people who pay for the work that gets done. So it's this beautiful balance between your teams and how you treat your teams and how you motivate your teams to deliver value for your customers. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that delivering value is what we do. How you deliver that value is up for debate. It is elastic, it is ever changing, and you must never be committed or stuck to a particular way of doing things. Inflexibility is what kills business. Not being able to interrogate the data, understand your customers' pain points, and adapt is what causes businesses to fail. It's difficult, but it's also very simple. It's as simple as just not getting stuck in this psychological place where we seek comfort from predictability. The only people who like change, or the only humans who like change, are wet babies. Wet babies love to be changed. The rest of us, We like the status quo because it gives us a sense of comfortability and psychological safety. But when you step outside of that and you start to iterate your business, you start to change, you evolve with the circumstances, that's when you get success, and that's when you actually build a product that lasts. So for me, over the years, what has happened is a journey of self-discovery as a woman, of my own capabilities, but also my limitations, the disempowering beliefs that I've had about myself, whether I deserve a seat at the table. Are people better than me because of where they come from? You know, this is a system that we have to really interrogate and question. Sometimes we hold ourselves back because we believe we're from this tiny, small country and we can't venture outside our comfort zones. That's not true. The truth is everything that was created around you that you admire, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a Mercedes-Benz, was created by someone no smarter than you. They just pushed through certain boundaries. They had a certain belief, a certain set of principles that guided them. And for me, that's really what I wish to impart on anyone who might be watching and seeking inspiration or seeking ideas. It's that all of this is within you. You just have to push through to find the information that you need, to educate and skill yourself up to such a point that every day that you step into the arena, you're focusing on how you create that value.
Okay. One of the things that she also highlights in this is the fact that there is an individual that comes into the business, and then there's the business. And we had spoken about branding in the last episode, but Lydia, just for you too, from what she has mentioned, all that she has packed up, perhaps you can just pick a few things, but also talking about how you separate yourself as an individual from the business to give the right communication package to your particular clientele. And if at all feedback does come back, you're not going to take it personal, but you're going to say, you know what, how do I move forward? How flexible can I be to change?
Well, thank you.
That comes with having a clear communication strategy. For many businesses, communication is actually pushed at the tail end of their priorities, which is wrong. You have to have a clear communication strategy on who your target audience is. Without knowing the target audience, you're not going to make it. You're going to create a product that won't have a need in the market, and then your business will end up failing. So even as you start this business, you've got to be very clear. How are you identifying this target audience? There are different strategies. There is digital marketing, there is email marketing. There are a number of ways you can do research just to find out who your customer is and where your customer is. Because if you don't know where your customer is, you're not selling anything. You're not selling a product. You're not offering them value. And that's what Shanice is talking about. So as women in business and as people in business, not just the women, we've got to be deliberate about investing in communication. I say this with passion because many people would want to take the easier way. They want the cheaper alternative. They want what comes easy for them. But in order for you to get the return on your investment, you've got to really dig slightly deeper than what you think to get the value that your business should have.
And that's where the question would be, and Rosemary, perhaps you can answer this for me, is that who then do I look at to help me come up with this strategy? Should I just go and perhaps listen to everyone who says something online? Do I go and read a few articles? Or do I consult and pay? Because you talk about investing, Lydia, and a number of times, well, you're just starting up the business. But then who can I go to help me here?
Yes, the power of mentorship, and I think that Sianis mentioned. And this is not just for women, but for everybody in business. I think that business should be taken, it's a profession like any other. To be a doctor, you have to go to school, right? You have to go and have practicals, you have to study and understand what it is. And so likewise, women need to realize that business is a profession like any other. And so if you choose it as a career, it's important that you seek advice from the experts. And so yes, I know the issue of cost. Normally, typically the way we start our businesses, we start them small, we start them with limited resources. And so when we prioritize paying for services, consultancy becomes it's down your list. But along the way, the lack of that usually shows up and affects you. And so I think it's important for us women to realize that we must be able to realize that it's important, one, to seek advice and be willing to pay for it. And so there are different, it's a whole range. And the beauty of it also today, all service providers, whether it is banks, whether it is investment authority or even Monta, everybody has embedded business development services in their delivery. And so consult, network, that's why we have networks, join a platform, a network of other business women, and then they can be able to share the experiences and guide you on where you can get reasonable services. But also as an institution, Enterprise Uganda, that's what we do. We provide business development support to women in business and businesses generally. And so it's about looking for information. Let's use our strength as communicators and as networkers to reach out and seek information, go to Investment Authority. They also have information they can provide to you. So I think that the challenge for women, what I thought is we need to get out and know, one, it's important to get business advice from experts to help us walk this journey. Because it's not enough for us to be natural communicators. There is a strategy involved behind it. There is understanding the customer. It goes beyond just seeing a woman, but you must get into the detail of that person, of that woman, understanding the profile of the woman. And that can be given, that support can be gotten from experts. So we need to budget for expert advice, but also seek other government institutions that are providing the same service at subsidized costs, but also any other service providers. Go to your bank, go to DFCU Bank. I represent DFCU Bank here today. Go to DFCU Bank and see what it is they can do to help you actually put in place the business systems or the communication strategy that you may need to push your business to the next level.
Okay. Well, as one of the experts from the Investment Authority bit of things, how many walk-ins do you find, a number of ladies who come in? Because if we're all mentioning that there's a need that perhaps you can meet, on an average, could you be able to tell us how many ladies do walk in and say, you know, they need this help?
Well, unfortunately, I can't give you an exact number, but what I will say that is that as the Uganda Investment Authority, we deal with about 40,000 applications for business, like investment licenses and that kind of thing. And at the authority, we actually have what we call the one-stop business center. So that's where you can come. We have up to 14 agencies, so government agencies as well as non-government. So you can basically walk in, talk to somebody on advisory and say, this is what I'm interested in doing. How do I start my business? How do I get a land, a title? How do I get a trading license? How do I, and so all these agencies are available to help you. That's why they're there, And as the authority, we actually have plans to have these become regional centers so that you don't always have to come to the center. And also we're grateful because now we have the ability to go online. The digital space is available. So just go online, find out what's available, It's like get out of your comfort zone. And I guess that's what business is also. You have to get out of your comfort zone to find that market that you're actually going to serve. And just to add on to what we were saying about the communication strategy, I think sometimes we forget to factor in the feedback. Like, is this communication actually working? Do I need to change it? And what we're saying about the target market, is that the right target market? You start out and you're like, I'm going to make baskets for, I don't know, young women. And it turns out it's young men who actually buy your baskets, And that's a different strategy you need to employ then. So you have to revise it constantly and find out, are you actually hitting your points? And I think also one of the things that we tend to miss in business is we tend to be unclear about how people can do business with us. We put out that flyer and we forget to say, okay, you can meet me here, I can deliver to you, this is how much it will cost. And we need to be clear about that. We need to be clear about what it is we are offering and how we are offering it, so that there are expectations. You go online and you read about people and they're like, oh, name and shame this company. But a lot of it has to do with the communication strategy in place. How do you handle complaints? How do you improve yourself? And how do you measure yourself to see that you are indeed improving the way you are providing your services? So things like that are available. Like she said, Enterprise Uganda, Uganda Investment Authority, the Daily Monitor, BFCU Bank and the other banks. Come in, walk in. These services are available for you to make use of.
As you mentioned it here, Faith, and also you have mentioned it, Rosemary, the services are available. But Lydia, in your perspective, how many times do you find that these services are actually used? And who knows about them, who doesn't know? Is it an issue of, once again, communication, clarity? Yeah.
Yes, that's very interesting, because if the services are available online, then we just haven't done enough marketing around them. We just haven't told people that the opportunities are here, come and grab them. That's just the missing link in all this, which we need to be more proactive about in the way we inform, in the way we report, but also the very people at the center of it also need to come out, reach out, Communication these days is changing. The customer today expects you to to find them in some instances. They are not just waiting that, you're not going to just sit and wait for a walk-in customer. You've got to try and take the product to where they are. Through the feedback, through product reviews, you'll be able to get that. So all these are opportunities that there are gaps there that we must really fill in terms of the information we provide, but also making sure that the right people actually get that information. Let's also go an extra mile to step out, identify the need, create a solution, and then fix it.
Okay. Well, Shanice, when you mention identify the need, create a solution, fix it, a number of times we shall find, and I don't know if you can all agree, that for most women businesses, it stops at a limited number of people they can employ, yes, in one or another. Shanice, you happen to be all the way in South Africa, but the business is running here in Uganda. So having, if you have the right communication strategy, but also now the right people in place to run the business, can the business be run without you being present? What is your comment on that in terms of communication? Because I believe it's a very important thing.
I think the business should run without you being present, and that's the true test of leadership. We've talked about a lot of things this morning, and I think that one thing we perhaps haven't touched on is this art of leadership. We sometimes think leaders are born, and to some extent there's some character traits that lend themselves better to leadership than others. But leadership, I think, can also be cultured, can be created, can be learned. It's a skill. And I love the expression, start as you mean to continue. So I think for a lot of women, when you start your business, it's because you want to survive. And I totally understand that. When I started my business, it was because I wanted to survive. I wanted to have an income that would support me. But one of the intentions for my business was not about survival. So there was a period where it was about survival, but the reason I started my business was to create impact at the highest point that I could. And because that was my intention from the beginning, I never settled for less than the best for my team, the best for my clients. And that is something that sets you apart from everybody else. We've talked about the customer journey. It's really important to understand how your customer finds you. Where do they go for information so that you can show up? And if we have some time to talk about digital, I'll expound on this more, because these are techniques that we can use right now, especially in a post-COVID or during COVID era, where a lot of customers are turning to digital. You need to understand their habits and their behaviors so you can be able to understand how your product fits in with what they want. But for me, being able, for your business to be able to run when you're not there is the ultimate test of leadership. Because when you start a business, you must also remember that you are creating a culture. And culture is created whether or not you're deliberate about it. But it is so much more important to be deliberate about how you create that culture. Within Blue Flamingo, we have a culture of responsibility. Whether you are the GM, whether you are the cleaner, there's a culture of shared value. We make sure that we never talk about each other behind each other's backs. When we have feedback, we give it to you, to your face, even with other people around, because it creates an environment of trust. Now, do we misstep all the time? Do we make mistakes? Do we sometimes not adhere to the same culture we're trying to create? All the time. But remember earlier I talked about the fact that business is iterative. You're always improving the process. You never arrive. So if we know this, then it's a process of always educating yourself as to how you can be better. But being a leader is what people do when you are not around. If you have to be around for people to do what they need to do, then you have some work to do. So the concept of the business running, the communication strategy being succinct and clear across the business, even when you're not there, is something you have to manage and plan for from the day you walk into the registration bureau to register your business. You're never too small to think about these things. Sometimes we think, oh no, communication strategy, culture, organizational design, behavior, design thinking, these are things for big companies. No, they're not. They're things for small to medium businesses to also institute. And here's the kicker, which makes it so beautiful. It's actually easier to be deliberate about these things when you're a small to medium business. You know, older, bigger, more institutionalized businesses are behemoths. They're slower to implement culture. Things take a little longer. When you've just started your business, you're nimble. You can make changes tomorrow. You are the owner of the business. You're the CEO. But you have to be super conscious about how you are building the kind of business that's built for success, long-lasting success, not just to make money, but to really create that value. So absolutely, I think being able to run your business from anywhere in the world is more critical now than ever, especially in the gig economy and in a place where everyone is working from home.
Okay. Well, thank you, Shanice. Yes, you want to add something to Rosemary?
I think that she touches on something very important. The motivation for starting business. You find that I think for many of our women, we start businesses are begun for survival, and so the dream itself, the vision is so small, and so your business can only be as big as your dream. And so because of that, you find that we are not able to put in place systems that we need to drive the business, and that business actually is a reflection of your personal weaknesses. So if I'm a baby boomer, I'm not tech savvy, so I can't embrace digital, options or channels because I'm not conversant. And yet, if you have a bigger vision, you want to be a market leader as you set this business up, then it drives you to actually employ. Go get, if you lack that skill, get it from somebody else. Complement yourself with, different skills. And so I think it's so important that for women who want to grow under the Rising Woman program, it's important that you separate yourself from this business, but also go back and look at this dream, revisit your dream. How big is your vision? I think you need to grow it up. Stretch your vision. Let it be a bigger dream. And that should be able to drive you to put in place systems, to work with others, to put the systems, especially because when you talk about a communication strategy for a small business, someone thinks, why should I incur that cost? My customers are few, I can communicate, why should I, And yet there's potential for them to grow this business, but it can only grow as big as the dream of this woman. So I'd want to challenge women to stretch your dream, make it bigger. Just like Shanice has shared, a bigger dream then drives you to work with people, put in place systems, and go seek knowledge, seek expert advice on how to make this thing grow beyond you, so that you don't even have to be there, isn't it? You don't have to be the face of your business. And I think that's what should be the dream of every woman.
Okay. Well, now as we talk, and Shanice had mentioned it, is that we are looking at a post-COVID-19 situation for us as a country and the entire world. So how do we move these particular communications and the modalities to suit what we are going through now and what we have learned? And one of the things, and we'll start from the DFCU Bank bit of things, is just simple processes like cash deposits. Things changing to, I want to use a particular payment method that is not the usual cash, or maybe now we'll call it the cashless economy that we're in and we're going to be with for a while. So what right steps do most Ugandans, first of all, struggle with this? Because if I'm telling you, I want you if I'm a business owner, and I'm saying, I need you to pay perhaps a deposit before I send you this particular item that you have purchased, people understanding this and where the struggles are there.
Yeah, I think that this whole COVID pandemic has provided opportunities, actually forced many people to go digital, to embrace, the digital era. And so, yes, as a bank, of course, during the lockdown, people still had to transact, people had to do things. And so they were forced to begin to, to use some of it. Those who never embraced ATMs had to now go pick your ATM because the banks are closed. You probably won't be able to access the bank. But also online performance has really grown, especially having those who in the past very, very skeptical about using some of those digital online platforms are now actually using them. And so we've seen a growth in, uptake of most of the digital channels. And I think that is the way forward. That is the future. There's no going back from this. And so I think every woman needs to actually embrace that. And the bank has put in place many options for customers. And there's even education, how supporting women to actually go online. And you will have a relationship manager to help you ensure that, you understand the steps. So I think that that's the way to go. Women need to embrace digitalization. We can't say, we can't do it, I'm too small. That is the way to go.
Okay. Well, Rosemary had touched on the fact that and also Shanice, what is the idea, the dream you have for your company in particular, or your business, and also it will motivate the way you communicate. So Lydia, just to bring you in once again, when it comes to communication, if you're trying to grow a very small business, how much time do you need to keep posting, or do you need to be sending out the message? Is it every single minute, every single hour? How do you gauge how much time you should invest in communication, digital bit of things, vis-a-vis the size of the company you want to have?
It all comes down to what you want to achieve. What is your end goal? In this country, you'll realize that in some instances, to get results, you really have to put something in people's faces. So if you're talking about how much time you'll have to invest in communication, I would say you need all the time you have to invest in communication. Why am I saying so? Without proper communication, nobody will understand, nobody will get to know about your beautiful product, nobody will get to know the many beautiful things you're doing behind the scenes. And you could actually be offering a solution to a problem they are facing. But if you've not engaged the different platforms we have, for instance, at the Monitor, we have the website, we have the NTV website, we have the radio, we have the newspaper. All these are platforms that are available for you to reach out and talk about your business, talk about your enterprise, and make sure that it grows. There are also other digital platforms you can engage just to reach out to those to your immediate networks, because oftentimes our immediate networks also help us to grow. When you talk about this digital era now, we really have to be very fast. We don't have time to, fast chill and say, no, this is not really important now. You have to move. The customer is moving at a terrific speed. If you are not part of that customer's journey, they'll have found an alternative. And if they find an alternative, that means your customer experience is poor. You can't afford a poor customer experience now. You've got to be at the top of it. You've got to listen in. You've got to be engaged with your customer through the platforms.
Just to bring you back into the conversation, Faith, taking a look at now, it has all been mentioned by most of you, the digital, how important it is this era now. And what does it ideally mean for a business? Yeah, you have a wider audience now. What opportunities does government? We have a number of times people saying we need government to step in, we need government to, put something in place. Has government thought about something in this particular way now?
Yes.
And what do we have?
Yes, we have. And actually, we have, when I mentioned the one-stop center, we have the physical where you can walk in, but we also have EBs, which means you go online and do everything. So you don't actually have to physically walk in to do these activities. But we're also saying to ourselves, well, we need to expand the number of services that are available. And so we're in the process of onboarding more and more services. But then just to take us a little back onto the digital space of side, as government, we are also using these channels because the citizens, the people we serve are so vast and so many, and they need that information to be constantly available. And just to go back to the question you asked about how much time do you need, I just wanted to point out that it also depends, like we're saying, on the customer you're looking for and where they reside, because I've seen a lot of people, it depends on the business. We keep saying be everywhere, but also choose a home on digital, because you might find that my business is based on pictures and video and things like that, and Instagram works for me, TikTok works for me, but if it's more educational and informational, maybe Facebook would be a good place for you, maybe LinkedIn would be a good place for you. So as you're developing your strategy, especially for digital, who are you targeting and where are they? And also importantly, what time are they online? Because you can spend hours and the time you're online, your client's actually not there, And so that's why we talk about the reach of your posts. Are they impacting? Are people engaging? Are they engaging? And are they angry? Are they happy? Are they sharing? Are they not sharing? Why are they not sharing? So those are the questions that as the communication person, you need to constantly ask yourself. For example, if I decided, with our partnership here with Rising Woman, all of us are using our platforms to promote this and to promote women in business. But if I did it by myself, then maybe not as many people would know about it. But collaboration is very important also. Just as we're saying, to get the information out there so that more people can use the channels, more people can access the information, and ultimately, more people can change their lives.
Okay. Well, the hashtag is Rising Woman 2020. You can be a part of the conversation so far, and I think as we get into the next part of it, we're going to be taking a look at what you have mentioned, Faith, which is the platforms. Which platforms do we now get to choose and say this is where I'm going to have my conversation? And also factoring in the number of women who actually own a smartphone and who can communicate. How do we have the entire generation of women, entire country, using these digital platforms? The conversation this morning is around building the right customer engagement channels and modalities in a digital era. One thing that this year has left us with the COVID-19 pandemic as we try to recover in terms of economy is how important the digital era is for your business. Yes, your business, and you're wondering which one and where is the line of what can I post, what can I not post, who should I be posting for, and where? Well, now let's take a look at the platforms. And Shanice, just bring into the conversation, at this point in time, October 2020, what platforms do we see that are most, one, effective for communication for a number of businesses, and which ones should we perhaps be putting to the side, and why?
There is some interesting data that's actually coming out on Africa. I was in a conversation with the team from Facebook just a few days ago, looking at some of the data. And it's really interesting in terms of how video has taken over in terms of just preference. Long videos are actually performing better because people have time. And there's always been this tension and this conversation between, does Africa have enough data to really, for video to be a viable platform? And it's interesting that that data is now showing that, you know, when you have no choice and you're bored and you're at home and, you know, the world is upside down, you're looking for information, it does spike certain behaviors because certain things become important. So Facebook continues to outperform most of the platforms, especially across the continent. And there's reasons for this because Facebook does have versions that are data light. So this is very important to consider. And of course, as you know, when it comes to how people use you know, the internet in Uganda, in East Africa, across the continent, it's really mobile first. So platforms that are mobile ready, that have been constituted for mobile, do really well. I love what one of the panelists said about the fact that it depends on your user. Now for digital, what I love and find really helpful is the idea of frameworks. When you have a framework, suddenly your thinking now is not arbitrary, it's actually based on a particular set of circumstances that you can easily adapt given the situation. And the number one thing when you're planning your digital strategy when it comes to framework is your goals and your objectives. Being very clear to define what the goal, the objective is, and what you want to achieve from digital marketing. Now, for most of us, it's leads, it's to grow our customers. Some of us, it's awareness. Others, it's conversions, especially if you look at the way e-commerce is beginning to grow on the platform, on the continent. And what platform do you use to push that? So social media is like a drop in the ocean. I could go into how important it is to search engine optimize, which means how you're found on Google, right, as a search engine. I could go into email marketing. Sometimes your customer is more comfortable with email if you're in a B2B business. We could talk about how you optimize across the board for your mobile marketing. So things like geo-targeting and geo-fencing and Google My Business, right? How do you optimize your content to be able to reach your consumer? So to simplify it, Facebook still leads. You've got your usual social media platforms like Twitter, which is great for events and customer care. Then when you break it down to Instagram, it really depends on the kind of business you're running. Instagram is doing really well for bakeries, confectionaries, people who are selling clothing, because you can see it, right? It's a very visual platform. So when I see this amazing appetizing cake, I go like, wow, I have to eat that cake now. I can place an order. Another trend that we really need to be sensitive to is that the platforms are also not sleeping, right? Instagram introduced a shopping channel, right? There's Shopify, there's Facebook is also making itself a shoppable channel. So you have to be sensitive to the fact that we now are seeing social media sell more than before. Social media was a platform to connect with friends, family, to do some customer care, to engage with your customers, to get some feedback. It has evolved from being that kind of platform to now becoming a player in the e-commerce space. So before, the cost of entry into e-commerce was so high. Now it's actually coming down. It's really easy to get into that space and start selling to your consumer immediately. So you have to put that into consideration. So when I talk about this framework, it's goals and objectives. It's identifying your customer and their journey. Where are they so you can find them? And then again, having an identification for your competitors. Then decide the role that digital plays within your business. take a good look at your searchability, because there's no point in being on Instagram if you don't have a website where people can get rich information around your brand, where they can connect with you better, where you can seed in content that you can't seed on social media platforms. And then understand what kind of content you're going to put out and how often. Are you going to do it daily? Are you going to do it weekly, monthly? And who's the person who's actually going to be in charge of that? And then, are you optimized for mobile? Is your mobile marketing on point? How do customers find you? When I want to know how I can get you on Google My Business or Google My, Google search, how are you geo-targeting for that location that they're in? Then there's email marketing. So this becomes a framework that you use, a lens you look through to say, this is how I build out my digital marketing strategy. And the really important thing that ties it all together is measurement. You absolutely have to know how you're attributing your return on investment. Is most of your leads or most of your customers, are they coming through Facebook? Are they coming through Instagram? Are they coming through Twitter? So it's great to understand where your customer is, but also you have to have a lens where you see how it's returning that investment for you. So really critical to just understand which channels are delivering for you. And once you're done with this framework, really understand that you have 3 types of media. You have paid media, you have owned media, and you have earned media. Paid media is when you pay for your ads, straightforward. Owned media is your website, the collateral that you've built that you own. You don't own social media sites. So there's a risk there if you don't have a website. And then earned media is the PR, the people who talk about you, your brand building efforts, what you're known for, the one thing people come to you for. So for me, frameworks are powerful because you can immediately plug in your digital marketing strategy and you can start to see how it's paying off for you.
Okay, well, thank you, Shanice. Now, Lydia, what comment you might have to what Shanice said, because she said a number of things, and one of the things that a number of people usually forget is the website. Your business having a website, which needs some money, investment in terms of IT, the particular experts is also that part. How do we rank it? How do we rate women when it comes to these websites for our businesses?
I would say there are a few women in Uganda who have really invested in creating websites for their enterprises. You'll find many of them running Facebook pages, using their WhatsApp statuses to promote their products. But websites, I think there's more work to be done there, because without it, then in the event that Facebook crashed, that means all your customers would go down the drain, and that's your business as well. So I think it's something we have to invest in as women. We have to be more deliberate, more intentional on making sure that if I have my small business selling my cool bags, I've got to have a website. I've got to promote it. I've got to put it out there. People must know that before I even go to Facebook, I first hit the website, so that what's on the website is then reflected on Facebook, much as it's a platform everybody is now more comfortable with using. Yes.
But when she mentions the measurements bit, Faith, I'll be bringing back the measurements bit. How do I now, because the number of people going to the website after I've invested there,
yes,
is also an issue.
Well, there are marketers, there are digital marketers who are, like Faith is right here. I think she would be able to expound on that.
Yes.
They do a number of things to help you identify where your customer is, who your customer is, at what time are they on the website. I've checked out some of her work, so I think she would be able to expound more on that.
Oh, Faith, do expound.
Thank you. And I like what you said, because ultimately all your channels are about getting people to do business with you, and so are you driving people to your website? And just to add to what you were saying, it's important to get information from your clients that you're going to use, right? So you're on Facebook, I don't know your phone number, I don't know your email address, that's the only contact we have. So like she said, God forbid Facebook decides that for whatever reason they've blocked your account. Suddenly you don't have client information, you have no way to access. And I think what we're all saying is that a business is about building that relationship. But then remember that people don't buy always when we expect them to buy. They buy, when they decide to buy, you need to be top of mind, so that when I'm like, oh, today I want to buy, I remember Lydia, she said this, she does this, I'm going to use Lydia. So a lot of what we're doing on our websites, on our social media, has to be attractive to that person. So you know how they say, okay, so one of the things they say is, because we're very visual people, especially when it comes to products, take a picture that shows off your product to the best of your ability. Don't say because, sometimes you take pictures in dark rooms and then you're selling me shea butter, I can't see the label, and because I can't see the label, I can't trust quality. And you don't need to have the most expensive phone or the most expensive camera to do this, because we're talking about digital. Go online, find out the little tips and tricks. People use like paper behind a container, and it gives it a glow, and you're attracted to things like that, and then because remember that communication is also about positioning in my mind. When you put out your product, are you telling me that I am providing a quality product? The people who you see their products and you are afraid to order. So it comes back to your strategy. How are you positioning yourself? And measurement, just what she was also saying. Because like we're saying, you might find that all your customers may not necessarily be on your website. But you can funnel them into a mailing list. Every so often, if you have their birthday information, send a happy birthday message, just to remind them that you're there. And then also, one of the things when we talk about business is value addition. Some of us, I like what we said about dreams. Some of us think that I'm going to only sell shea butter cream, and that's where it's going to stop. But you can evolve into soap. You know what I mean? Like add value. Because when you add value, guess what? You're building your value chain. And that means that I'm talking to this person who needs the soap. I'm talking to the person who needs the cream. I'm talking to someone who needs it for their hair. And there's so much more you can give. And I think for us as the authority, that's what we're interested in. As SMEs, when you come to talk to us, we're saying, okay, how else can we add value? So you can move from being, for lack of a better word, an entrepreneur into an investor. An investor is somebody who says basically, is this financially viable? Does this make sense from a commercial point of view? And so we come in to say, listen, these are the skills you have. This is what you need. This is where you're going, and walk that journey with you, so that you can move. Because ultimately, we're all contributing to our homes. We're all contributing to the communities. And it's because we're helping. It's because we're improving that we're able to give back. When we were on break, we talked about, the woman in the village, who might not have access to what we're talking about now.
But she is watching now.
But she is watching.
She's saying,
and she lives right next to me and you, And the truth is, even if we are now talking about digital and that kind of thing, the truth is, she has a product that we need, right? And because we have evolved to the point where mobile phones are available, internet is more available. Could be cheaper, but it's more available now. Your son, your daughter can have it. One of the things that we're doing as the authority actually is going into investment committees at the district level, so that we can gather people in groups, and cluster them, so that when we say, we need potatoes from, I don't know, Kabale, we can go down there and say, the woman leader there can say, my group has this product. How can we move it to Kampala? How can we move it to East Africa? How can we get it out of Africa? So that we can move. And so we can invest locally as well as invite other people abroad to invest in the country. Because ultimately, we're all contributing to GDP. So I think that through such initiatives, we'll have more people brought in and more people who are talking. And, I was in a training recently where we were talking about how many of us talk, but few of us communicate, right? And I like this discussion because that's what we're essentially saying. You should be able to use the channels you have to tell us what you have so that we can support you, so that we can improve you, and ultimately as a country we can be improved. That's just my 2 cents.
So thank you. Now, as we wrap this up, Rosemary, from the DFCU Bank bit of things, what more can be done in the digital era? What can be held on and carried on further for any lady who's in business and has been watching?
Yes, I think that as a bank, it's, again, quite a good percentage of women are now responding. They actually can be accessed through digital channels, but still a very huge population is still out there that needs to be reached using other means. And so I think as a bank, it's using blended approaches to still use the analog approaches, the face-to-face, but also education, sensitizing these women. I think customer engagement is very important to educate these women to appreciate the benefits of being digitally connected, because like you said, within the family, at least this woman might have somebody who can afford to get a phone, and so, you know, getting them in groups, getting these women as collective groups, and emphasizing the importance of them, and helping them to actually migrate. I think the bank is trying to help these women migrate gradually into the digital, you know, into the digital platforms and channels. But it's going to take a bit of time, and for now, a blended approach must be taken to allow these women in their because these women are small, and probably their vision is still small, and so when you talk about some of these, you know, if everything goes online, then you miss them out, and yet they have potential, you can grow them. So as a bank, I think it's growing that segment and engaging them, educating them, and ensuring that they still can be reached, you know, within the services that we are delivering. And so it's providing a blended kind of approach where we have some of them we still need to have to make the phone calls, the face-to-face, make the phone calls, but support them also to reach markets, you know, you partner with other institutions to support these women to reach markets, but gradually get them to appreciate the value of going digital. But of course, government plays a role there, because the issue of connectivity, even as we talk about getting everyone on board, even as we sensitize them and they appreciate the value of actually being able to, you know, to go digital, the issue of connectivity is still a challenge. And so I think government still has a key role to play in there to ensure that the national, the backbone, that the national backbone actually goes around, and every woman, even the woman in the rural area, is able to access connectivity, and that way be able to embrace.
All right. Well, since we have government here and have been able to take this in, our conversation this morning definitely centering around building the right customer engagement channels and modalities in a digital era. One, from what everyone has mentioned this morning, is please have the right communication strategy. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to listen to what other people are saying and follow through. And in case something changes, be flexible enough to go ahead and change with the times. The conversation has been that, the hashtag Rising Women 2020, the conversation does not stop here. It's also online, and you can go there and say something, because all of this is just simply to take your business ahead and not backwards. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us this morning. I was joined by Shanice online. Shanice, the Group CEO of Blue Flamingo. Then on my extreme left, I was joined by Miss Rosemary Mutiabule, I'd say that's Tholi, Director Business Advisory Services at Enterprise Uganda. Faith Ekudu, who is the Deputy Director Communications and Public Relations at UIA. And from Daily Monitor, Lydia Namono Wesonga, the Assistant Editor, Business Daily Monitor. That has been our conversation. Have a good afternoon.